Good morning, everybody. I am Julie Mockabee, the chairman of the Yarmouth Historic Commission, and I'm going to begin by taking a roll call for quorum. George Slama.
Here.
I know Melanie can't make it today. Jack Duggan.
Here.
Kathy Heislip.
Here.
Bob Kelly.
Here.
Beverly is not here. And Bob Heislip. He's here. And I know Sam can't make it. All right, so we have a quorum. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 10 o'clock. And I'm going to ask our moderator, Grace, to explain how our remote participation will work. Grace? You're muted, Grace.
I knew that about halfway in when this doesn't feel right. Thank you. So to begin again, as a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public, and the January 14th, 2021 Historical Commission meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Grace Rogers, and I'm the Office Administrator for the Yarmouth Historical Commission and will be serving as moderator for this virtual meeting. Although no in-person attendance will be permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. Persons who would like to view or listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by watching this meeting virtually or dialing in to the number provided on the notice of meeting. We will also post a recording of this meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we are available to do such. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. For all meetings, to reduce confusion during the meeting, all audience participants of the virtual meeting enter the meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or moderator. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask for a roll call vote. For applicants and presenters will be made temporary panelists in order to share their screens while giving their presentation. All presenters and speakers need to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation when speaking. Non-presenters can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The moderator will unmute applicants when they are called upon to speak. For public participation, comments or questions from the public will be taken at the discretion of the chair. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. If you are dialed in to the phone number provided, you can press *9 on the phone to indicate that you would like to comment. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record, and they provide their comment each time they speak. Now I'm handing back the meeting to the chair. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Grace. All right, so we have a couple new things to discuss today. The first being the town seal design review. I'm sure everybody got the packet on that, listing kind of the town seals of all the towns and kind of a little background on what's been going on with that. So I think what we were trying to do was open to the group and discuss possibly putting together a smaller working group that was interested in looking at our town seal and options for redesigning it. And I thought we were going to have one of the selectmen here, but is he not coming? You know?
Yes, Mark Forrest, the chair of the selectmen's here. I'm going to promote him to a panelist.
Yeah, he's interested in this as well. So we just kind of, I guess, wanted to. Hi, Mark. Welcome. Can you hear us?
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Thanks for joining us.
And thanks for the invitation. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, great. So we're just starting to discuss the town seal.
Excellent.
And kind of what we've been kind of going back and forth with a little bit. We all have a packet with all the town seals of all the different towns and correspondence and things that people have found over the past couple weeks relating to this topic. And I guess basically what we were going to try to discuss today is possibly putting together a group that wanted to work together to take on this task of possibly redesigning the town seal for our town. So if anybody has any comments or wants to pitch in information.
Can I at least speak first before you,
Yeah.
to give you a sense of why I brought this? Not that you weren't aware that this was an issue out there, but why I sort of weighed in and asked that it be given at least some priority is, I know this question has come up. First of all, before I go any further, let me just wish you all a happy new year, and to also thank you for the work that you do. I hear from several members of the board on a regular basis on all sorts of things. And as a resident of Indian Memorial Drive, I love your tenacity and work on that project. I'm becoming a big fan of this board, and I just want you to know that I'm genuinely interested in the work that you do. If there's something that I need to be aware of, there's a problem, there's an issue, I just want you to feel comfortable contacting me anytime to elevate any issues or concerns to the board. Like I said, I'm a fan. I appreciate what you're doing. I don't want you for a minute to think that we're not paying attention and we're not watching or following. I certainly respect all the energy and talent that you bring to this topic and to the work of the town. And sometimes my biggest regret is we don't meet with all the various committees and boards of the town often enough. So I thank you for giving me this chance to be with you. So I really appreciate it. Let me also, in the interest of full disclosure, make you aware that I am, I know many of you are aware that I'm a county commissioner, but in my sort of private life, I am a consultant to the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. I have been a consultant to the tribe for many, many years. And in my past life, when I was a chief of staff to Congressman Delahunt and a district director to Congressman Studs, I spent an enormous amount of time advancing the interests and concerns of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, the Aquinnah Wampanoag people. I worked on getting them recognized. I worked on helping them get land. I worked on the original Aquinnah settlement briefly. And right now, our efforts are focused on hanging on to the Mashpee Reservation land that was set up because Donald Trump has been trying to take it away from them. And so obviously, it looks like we're going to win that battle on the 20th, once the new president's inaugurated. And so we'll now be working to secure that land and to make sure that it's fully protected long term. And then we could help this tribe build its base. So I just want that out there. I don't want anybody to think that what I'm doing is on behalf of the tribe as a consultant or the other work. I speak to this issue just as a private citizen. I have not had an opportunity to talk about this with the full board or raise it with the board. But I know that since it has come up in the past, when this legislative proposal was floating, it sort of, in my mind, sort of resurrected a concern on my part. What have we? I know this has come up in the past, and so my first question to the board, and you don't have to answer this now. I think this becomes part of your study group and your process, and you're already into it already. I've seen the evidence that you folks have already been digging into this. But the first question I think we need to answer collectively as a community is has this issue come up before, and how have we dispensed with it in the past? I think it's important to understand that and to acknowledge in the report and the work of the committee that the whole awareness of seals has been spurred by this legislation, and that there are residents in Yarmouth that are interested in seeing us review the seal to make sure that it's appropriate and historically accurate, and to identify any features in it that may be seen as a concern or objectionable or in any way disrespectful to Native Americans or First Americans. And in this case, much of what we're talking about are basically Wampanoag tribal members. So the good thing is feel free to use me as a consultant. I can get you connected to all the right people, although you've been doing a good job in developing your own relationships and connections with the Mashpee tribe anyways. So I don't think you'll need my help. I think you've pretty much figured out all the right people to talk to. I know you've had discussions with David Whedon, who is the relatively new historic preservation officer for the tribe. Ramona Peters was the one that we spoke with in the beginning in the original work on the Indian Memorial. David Whedon is a wonderful, incredible, talented leader in the tribe, and Ramona is just an incredible human being. So you're talking to all the right people. So I don't think you'll need me, but if for some reason something happens and you're interested in some additional help in opening some doors there or getting something squared away, I'm happy to do that. But I think that those are the basic questions that are out there. So I think the first questions center on those. I don't think we should make a determination yet that, although I think we may need to make changes, I don't think we should jump to that conclusion yet. I think we should diagnose if there is a problem. And then there's a separate question of what's the remedy, what's the fix, and how to approach that. But I think honestly, I think this group's recommendation that there's a history here, this is what's come up, this is what we've done. And if you think there are aspects of the seal that are inaccurate factually or are disrespectful, I think that needs to be documented and made known to the select board. And then I think it begs the question, which I think the answer will be yes, is would you like our recommendations or assistance in terms of finding ways to correct or remedy that situation? I do think we need to have a conversation about what to do next that's separate from the, hey, listen, we've looked at this. It's been brought to our attention by numerous residents. We think there's a problem. We think there's an issue. We think there's a need to explore a remedy. And then I think that needs to be elevated to the board. And then the next question would be your recommendations on how to go about addressing that, what in terms of what your recommendations are. So I'd like to suggest that your efforts focus on the initial phase of this, and then later we give some space so that there could be some internal dialogue and discussion about it. And to the extent that the group is willing and interested and would like to assist the board in coming up with a process to remedy any deficiencies, I think that should be made known. But I would not want you to go much further than that until you get some direction and approval and recognition from the board and taking that next step. So let me just put that out there. I hope that helps. But I'm here, Madam Chair, for whatever process you would like me to participate in going forward. And I'm happy to answer questions if you want to spend some time with that. And I'm also happy to, if you would like me to stick around for some of your deliberations, I'm happy to do that. But I don't want to be in sort of like a force sort of hovering over you. I'm happy to excuse myself so that you folks can sort of on your own talk amongst yourselves. I know it's a public meeting, so it's out there so others can watch, but I'm happy to excuse myself so you folks can feel somewhat unencumbered by my presence. I have no issue with that. That's fine. That help?
Well, thank you so much for being, yes, that was very helpful. And I know I'm probably speaking for everybody, but we definitely appreciate that you took the time to come talk with us today and that you're bringing all your experience that you have. And I think that everything that you can bring to us is definitely valuable. And I have no issue with you hanging out with us while we talk about this. I think exactly what you were saying, we do need to just find our next first step, which I think is to see if there's interest here in the group to go further with this, which I'm pretty sure based on what we've already briefly discussed, I think there is. And then just what exactly, like you said, what do we do next to decide where we want to go with it? So I personally am very interested in this project, and I'd like to be involved in discussing it, and with whatever next step we take, I'd like to be a part of that. So if anybody else wants to pitch in their feelings regarding it, and maybe we can just kind of get a little dialogue going to find out what we want our next step to be. So anybody else want to jump in? Bob Kelly, go ahead.
I want to thank Mark for being here today. And I think we do have something to contribute, and just want to say that, well, just thanks for pushing this and letting us weigh in on it.
I hope you enjoyed, Bob. First of all, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the newspaper article that was in the Provincetown Independent. I started to think it sort of raised the other aspect of this is, you know, I don't want to say I'm Yarmouth first person, but you know, I'm a hometown person. I don't want to be reading in a newspaper somewhere that Yarmouth has a seal that is found to be historically inaccurate and is in fact resented in some way by some part of the Native American community, and somehow we missed in communications. You know, it's almost like, you know, I'm always looking to put our town in the best light and for people to see all the good things that we do here in Yarmouth. And so I will admit that was what I was thinking when I was reading this article, was kind of like these oh my moments where it's like, ooh, I think we need to really look at this a little bit harder and maybe get on it a little bit faster, because I don't know when at some point they'll probably come to the Yarmouth seal and spend some time offering. I just don't want to be reading from some Native American group that basically has something to say about our seal. I think we may have heard some incidental comments from tribal members that there may be some things we can do. I think that's probably provides enough additional inspiration to sort of move this along, because I know tribal members have looked at this and said,
I would say that since we put up the WE2 at the Historical Society, that our sensitivity around some of these issues is heightened.
And I commend you for that, and I commend you for what you're doing. It's amazing, you know, the work that you did before about, I mean, I live on what was once an Indian reservation. I had never known that until you folks had done that work. And I believe the more we know about Native American history, the better we understand our own history.
Sure.
You know, Native Americans are an integral part of our own history, and we know so little about it, which means we know so little about our own history, which is very, very sad, so to speak. Thanks, Bob, for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. George, go ahead.
Hey, neighbor. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. It's interesting when I read the Independent piece, and Miss Peters mentioned that, you know, one of the seals, I forget which one she was referencing, had a teepee. And her comment was, we didn't use teepees. And I said, we have a teepee on our seal. So, you know, it's good timing. The state legislator, as you summarized, have given us a roadmap, which is to investigate the features and whether they're unwittingly harmful or misunderstood by the citizens of the Commonwealth of Yarmouth. And so good timing, and look forward to being, you know, a part of this. And I'd be very interested in, you know, working on this. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Jack, go ahead. Jack.
Okay, just got to unmute myself. I'd like to be part of any working group that goes forward. Hi, Mark. Start with that. Happy New Year. I got a question specifically for Mark. Kind of task-oriented question, Mark. You talked about attacking this in stages and at an initial stage for the commission. So I just want to make sure I heard you right, or we can shape this up so we know exactly what we want to do in this initial phase. So I think what I heard you say was this is kind of a fact collection stage where we look at how did the town arrive at the current seal. Is it accurate? What is about the current seal? Is it accurate? I think we would reach out to Mashpee Wampanoag tribal members and representatives to get some feedback from them on what they think of the seal. Ditto for residents of our own town who are interested in this and have some thoughts. And that would be the initial phase that I heard you sort of talk about here. And when we complete something like that, then we would come to the select board with a presentation that says, here's what's going on. We'd like to hear your response and get some direction from you on the next steps. Does that kind of sum up what?
Well, I didn't want to come to the meeting without any suggestions, or at least I hate coming to a party without food. I hate coming to a meeting without a suggestion. So I come to this meeting only with just the best of intentions, but there's no pride of authorship here. I have enormous respect for the talent on this board. If you want to tweak that or revise that, or as George said, there's the state's kind of giving you a little bit of a roadmap.
Right.
Maybe we look to that. That may be a better approach. But I do think what I'm a little bit nervous about is I'd like to bring the community itself. I do think there's a value, and it may be that what the state's approach is doing makes a lot of sense. But I do think before we jump to the conclusion and then offer a remedy, sometimes, like even with a sick patient, you go over, here's your problem, here's your issue. These are the things that you need to fix before we lay out how we go about the treatment. Let's at least come to an agreement on the diagnosis and on the need for a remedy. And then if we're there, then we can go over your treatment options. I think, I don't know. I was never a doctor. I don't know any doctors, but maybe it's watching all these doctor shows. It's just, I have this sort of approach in my own mind that sometimes there's a value in coming to agreement. Do we have a problem here? Is everybody in agreement? Now, if this board says we have a problem, I doubt we're going to disagree with your diagnosis. Everything that you've done that I've seen has been incredibly thorough and very well done. And all I would ask is that you participate in that discussion of the problems with the seals or any
Sure.
issue. I'd want to have a lively discussion about your assessment and what you found. I think that would be very, very helpful.
Okay, I'm just trying to sort of figure out where the line is between assessing what we're dealing with and then making a recommendation and trying to get a sense of when's the appropriate moment to make the recommendation, or maybe it isn't a recommendation. It could be his three choices that we could go to. This is not cooking the books before we're even started, but there's one obvious thing factually incorrect about the seal, and that is the TP that's used there. That's
Right.
just not accurate, period.
Right.
But so you see where I'm going. I'm trying to think of.
No, I understand. Some of the solutions will be obvious once you diagnose the problem. If you diagnose the problem and let's say it's only the TP, but I think you're going to find probably a couple of other things that are a problem. So I think once you identify what the problem is, then the remedy almost becomes self-evident. But I do think there's a value for a group like this. You're wading into something that could be a little bit politically treacherous. And I guess maybe you could say I'm interested in making sure that you get everybody to the point that you're at. And then once you know that, and I do think it would be far better for you to be given direction and say, yes, we agree. The Board of Selectmen says, yes, we agree with your diagnosis. We recognize that you've identified these problems, and we'd like your help in coming up with a revised seal that we can review and discuss, or maybe three options to do going forward. Maybe that's how it happens. But again, I put this out there but I do believe there should be a break. I think it would be appropriate, rather than to drop the whole thing on the community and the board at the same time. I do think it would be helpful to sort of break it up a bit so that you get some affirmation that indeed your assessment is correct and we want to do something about it. Does that help?
Yeah, that does. You've clearly read between the lines of my question of the kind of waters that we may or may not be entering. I think this is a good task. I think the kind of outline that I just roughly sketched out there and read back to you is the first stage in a factual collection of data. Get as much accurate data as we're able to lay our hands on about where this seal, how this seal originated, and then how it fits with us in the 21st century. There may very well be other aspects. We're focused now on kind of things that are disrespectful and factually inaccurate with respect to Native peoples, but there may be other things that people of the town or the committee members may feel, or board members may feel that is an appropriate representation of other aspects of the town's history. All you need to do is look at some of the seals of other towns on the Cape, and you see seafaring themes or stuff like that that we may want to consider in a seal. But you've answered my question. Thank you. That's a good thing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, I was just going to add, I think maybe our initial first step is just kind of find out, kind of like we're doing, who is interested in being part of developing a project like this, and then putting together sort of a general outline, I guess, of what we see the larger problems being, and no solutions, just like a general outline that we can then bring to the selectmen just to get validation that this is something that they think we should go forward with before we kind of get too into the weeds on it. So I know so far I know Bob, George, Jack, and myself are interested. If anybody else wants to be in on our little group, let us know. And perhaps we could, I'm sure we can have like a separate meeting just to discuss that, this one topic, and put together some kind of an outline that we can then maybe bring to Mark and to the selectmen. Does that sound like something that we can do?
Sure.
Yeah, would that work? George, go ahead.
Unmute yourself, George,
You, George.
or somebody unmute you.
Grace, you're first.
You can go ahead, George, if you want. I can wait.
Julie, I think your summary is a good one, and I would like to make a motion to that effect. That the motion would be that the Historical Commission agrees to take a look at this project and issue, and amongst ourselves agree on a subcommittee, and then, to your point, create a working document for us going forward. So I put that motion to the commission.
Okay, does anybody have anything to add before we ask for a second? Grace, you had a hand up, and Bob Kelly as well.
Thank you, Julie. It's nice to see you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for joining us. I'm happy to be working for Yarmouth. To speak to your point of diagnosing, in the preservation world, this is something that we often do in historiography. Now there is this new wave of history, which is really looking at all different perspectives and telling all sides of history. And then you have revisionist history, which is very much what this is telling the most accurate perspective and different perspectives of history of what this is. And not to mention that just by looking at the fact that the seal has a teepee on it, it means that it is a Great Plains Native American that's being represented. Of that in and of itself, I haven't had an opportunity to look at the dressings yet, but I'm sure that they probably are unfortunately inaccurate. But the way that of what you were speaking to, Mr. Chairman, is to evaluate something like this in preservation is really to look at what the narrative is speaking to at the moment. So what that involves is doing quite a bit of research and looking at what is being told now, and then looking back at the historic and cultural roots of what, I don't want to say should be told, but what is supposed to be told. So obviously, if this is a Great Plains Native American, then we really need to reach out to our local tribe and do the history to ensure that it is accurate. So again, you're looking at it, you have a narrative that's being told, and it's obviously inaccurate, unfortunately. And when you collect that data, what Jack was talking about, and what Mr. Chairman has also proposed here, the remedy does come to itself. It's as if you're doing any other research project. If you start doing your research, you know what is true and what is not.
Can I respond to that?
Of course.
I'm also interested in, and I don't know if this information can be gleaned from historical records, but I mean, I'm proud of the fact that way back when Yarmouth wanted to put on its seal some representation of Native Americans. I think that is important. What's also revealing is the depictions that were put on it. I suspect the absence of a Wetu and the use of a teepee was it intentional? I doubt it.
Yeah.
Was the dress, the inappropriate dress or incorrect dress, intentional or just a mistake? So I think I like what you're saying, Grace, because I think let's, to the extent that we can, and I know that work is already going on because I've seen the evidence of it. So the more, you know, if at the end of the day we want to reaffirm the intentions of the original, the Board of Selectmen way back when, and the people of Yarmouth in designing a seal that reflects Native American history, but that it's this board's intention to bring to town meeting at some point a new seal that more accurately represents and embraces the intentions of the board years ago, then I think that would be important to know that. Like I said, I think this was a well-intentioned group way back when. I just think that either they were poorly guided. I mean, I can't imagine back then us not being aware. So there has to be a story there. We may never know what that is in terms of why that was chosen.
Just
But there may be a way to find out.
just based on timeline, as a historian, I'm like you, my first reaction was, well, how did we come to something like this?
Right.
And just looking at the documentation that Jack had provided about the time of which it was officially adopted, whether that was the late 1800s or early 1900s, my first thought goes to access of information. What did they have then? Usually it's encyclopedias, and what do you have at that moment? Usually a sketch dedicated to that one subject, which is more likely than not a teepee, because looking across the nation, most Native Americans are represented by teepees. If you ask, the majority of Americans are going to respond with, oh, they lived in teepees, which is accurate for some, but not all, depending on what region it's from. So I agree with your sentiment. And I just think it's access to information, and that we can explore that more.
Bob, Kelly, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that in my research and trying to understand about these seals, usually in each town, I don't know how many selectmen there were in Yarmouth in 1900 when this was designed, but in reading about some of the other towns, this task usually fell to one man or one person to design. And I think that may have been the case here in Yarmouth. I do know that other towns have looked at their seals. Dennis redesigned their seal, and in the redesigning chose not to recognize Native Americans in their seal. They were more fixed on, say, the accuracy of the ship and the components of the ship that's solely in their seal. So I think it wasn't as much of a collaborative effort in 1900 as we want to take a look at today. And I think that's why maybe some mistakes were made or whatever. So.
Thank you.
George, go ahead.
And not to go into too much detail, but just to add a little more granularity, the state seal was the first, and they have the native person with a bow. And if you look at seals here in other parts of the state, it looks like that native person became the model, which showed up on a number of seals. Now the view, side view, full view. Yes, it was great to see a forefather, indicate native person, given that the archaeological record indicates that the first peoples were here 10 to 12,000 years ago. So, that's just a little, thing that I picked up on.
Good to know.
George. Jack, go ahead.
Just to kind of address obliquely, how did it come about? I have a feeling that the seal come about. I have a feeling that we're going to be dealing with a lot of fragmentary evidence and not much of that. But I just got through reading a short time ago a report that is an archaeological report that's relevant to motivation and what people might have been thinking about back at the end of the 19th, the beginning of the early 20th century. There were a lot of avocational archaeological collectors in Yarmouth and the rest of the Cape, but I've seen the specific data for Yarmouth. So there was I think a tremendous awareness among a number of townspeople of the area's Native American past. And unfortunately, they collected all of this in a very haphazard way. And I can tell you from seeing some of the inventories of this avocational collection activity that a lot of the information that a professional archaeologist would have extracted from that has long been lost because people just didn't keep any records of what they were picking up in terms of tools. But it does speak to the motivation of why a Native American figure and other symbols might have got onto the seal, but it only speaks to it in a general sense a general sense. The other thing that George alluded to, and I just want to brag on it a little bit because I was part of it along with a lot of other people. We know for a fact from a professional archaeological survey work over at Taylor Bray Farm in 2017, for the first time in the history of the Cape, in a professional archaeological context, we discovered evidence of a whole new chapter in the history of the town of Yarmouth that goes back 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, when this great sandbar was emerging from being a tundra to a more recognizable landscape that we all see today. So we have a factual basis based on a professional archaeological record as well as an avocational record that warrants honoring the town's first residents. So that's just a point. We're probably getting ahead of the game in terms of our investigation.
Good point.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, excellent. All right, so George has made a motion that we put together a subcommittee to begin working on an outline for this. Would somebody like to second?
I'd like to second it.
Bob Kelly. Okay, so Bob seconds. I'm gonna do roll call for approval. Jack Duggan.
Aye.
Bob Heislop. Kathy, there you go.
Aye.
Okay. All right, I believe we are all in favor. All right, our motion has passed. All right, so we'll get working on that. And again, Mark, thank you so much for joining us and providing your insight on this project. And we'll we'll keep you informed as to
That's
what
great.
we put together.
Julie, thank you. Thanks, everybody. I enjoyed myself immensely being a part of this meeting today, and I envy Grace for being able. She has the opportunity and the pleasure to have all this time with you folks. So maybe I can trade places with her one of these days.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, okay, she's not going to give it up willingly. Okay. All right, folks. Have a great day, and
Thanks.
thank you very
Thanks, Mark.
much. Take care.
So much.
Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, so we're going to move on to our next new business, which is the Blue Sky Towers proposal for the telecommunication antenna off of Route 28. Has everybody had a chance to look through that packet and the location and the proposed plan? And does anybody have any questions or concerns? Or Jack, go ahead.
I want to just say up front that we got a 200-page document yesterday, and I'm not sure what's in it because, for one, it came late in a regular sense, and then it came even later to me because, for whatever reason, some of Grace's mails go to my junk mailbox, so I didn't discover it until quite late in the evening last night. I have some general opinions on the cell phone tower proposal, but I don't know what's in the 200-page document that came to town hall yesterday so late. I have read the Mass Historical Commission letter evaluating it from their standpoint, but just for the record, I'm a little concerned that there might be something in that long document that we need to read before we act. But I'd like to hear what other people have to say about that.
Great, thanks, Jack. Yeah, I also did not get a chance to read the larger document. Does anybody else have anything? George? Yep, go ahead.
Grace, in my past life, I worked as an iron worker, and so in Boston, and this is going to be a 10-story spire. Are there height restrictions? I mean, right near the church on Route 28, it's going to be popping up there. I mean, what's the restrictions, or are there any?
I can try to help answer some of that, and I think it's important to note that this cell tower is considered a mandatory development of regional impact, which means they have filed with the Cape Cod Commission. What happens in terms of permitting, George, is, yeah, we have all sorts of rules on heights and setbacks and all the rest of it. When you have a development of regional impact, and my understanding is they haven't filed any permits locally, but what would normally happen is if you had a project come in locally that was a DRI, development of regional impact, local permitting stops, and it's everything gets put on hold, the timeframes and everything, and then the project is reviewed by the full Cape Cod Commission. So in this case, I believe it's a mandatory DRI, development of regional impact, sorry. And so it is over at the Cape Cod. It will go over to the Cape Cod Commission. I don't disagree. The notice, the timing on the information provided is really terrible. I did take opportunity while you were talking about the town seal to go through the application the 200 pages, just scanning. And just to draw to your attention, and I don't know if Grace had already seen this, on page 55, there's correspondence from Sarah Korjeff to, I think, the Mass Historic Commission, talking about the Cape Cod Commission's review, and in fact that, concepts or visualizations would need be provided. So we'd get a feel. I mean, my whole reaction is I don't know what it's going to look like. It would be nice to know really what's it going to look like in relation to everything else that's there. The other thing that I saw in that packet, which I am guessing would be of interest to you guys, is on page 66. And that's the start of I think it was a 2018 archaeological report in there that's done by Gray and Pape. So I know you guys would be interested in that. But you know, you really haven't had much time to review the materials. I think that Grace did a good job, you know, telling them we don't have anything to go on. We can remind them of that and maybe echo. I don't know, Grace, if you can share your screen. I can't get. I don't have it on my. I'm working remote, so things are a little bit funky for me. You may want to echo Sarah's comments or consider echoing Sarah's comments that are on page 55 of that thing. So Grace, if you can pull that up, everybody could have a quick look at that.
Can I say something in the meantime?
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I got a letter at the Historical Society on
Yeah.
this, and there's a description if you'd like to hear it. The proposed telecommunications facility will be located within a wooden area south of the existing church, west of Route 28. The lease area for the facility is approximately 100 feet by 100 feet and will contain a 120-foot tall man pole. Associated telecommunications equipment will be located outside at the base of the structure within 70 foot by 75 foot fenced compound surrounded by a 6-foot tall chain link fence. The facility will be accessed via a 12-foot wide gravel driveway along a 15-foot wide access easement, which will extend from the existing parking lot. Utilities will follow a 10-foot wide utility easement through the parking lot to an existing utility pole along Route 28. And I guess the Boy Scouts, the last time this was proposed, I'm sorry, the Historical Society put up a big stink about it. And so we now get these communications.
George, go ahead.
So, so do we have a timeline deadline to respond back to this? And Karen, does this require a town public meeting? What's the process? I know it's the MHC, but what about local input?
I think that you got the letter. Grace received correspondence from MHC, and it wasn't received until, I don't know, what day was that, Grace?
I believe that letter that's included in the packet from MHC was December 30th, which was followed from a phone call because MHC had called me asking whether or not we had received anything past the letter of intent and project description, of which I said no, and that we would like more information, obviously, so we could make an educated recommendation or opinion if need be on this. So that was December 30th that we received, or they wrote the letter. I didn't receive it until January, first week of January.
Yeah. So and the letter asked, I think the letter does ask for comment in 30 days, George.
Okay.
Which would put it to, the end of January, I'd say, because you'd go off not the date of the letter, but the date of receipt of the letter, which is just too short. And that's where I think that kind of, is there a process spelled out? No. In terms of public hearings and everything. I think that, it's awful close to the Bass River National Register Historic District. That's one comment. I don't know the history of the site itself, and whether or not the church is historic in any way. That's, you know, something for you guys that you could comment on. But I do think, you know, Sarah has kind of, the way she phrased her response, it's kind of, she's reserving comment because there's not enough information presented here.
So Karen, has that, where does zoning come into this? Or because of that designation, does that mean the, you know, the town zoning requirements are abridged? Or how does this work?
They're not abridged. The Cape Cod Commission regulations are on top of this. And so what would likely happen, George, and we haven't, you know, we haven't gotten any building permits. We don't have any drawings.
But
All the items that Bob was calling out come into play because of setbacks and whatnot. What will,
Karen, I have a, along with that letter came a aerial photograph of the area, and I can scan this maybe in for folks to see.
I think that aerial picture, Bob, is there also kind of a color locus map there? Because I think that's the same information we have.
Yeah, it shows red circles.
Yeah, and I
Around
think
the
it's part
area.
of that 200-page filing too.
right.
Right, that area of Yarmouth was settled around 1926. It was called Paukernucket Village, and there are articles about it. So that's about the earliest anything was developed in that area. Route 28 did not exist until
Right.
1933. So an extension of Pond Street went across, I guess, a driveway, which was old Route 20 would have been a driveway. And there are articles explaining how that area was developed at that time.
Jack, go ahead.
Karen, I have seen that map you referenced and the one Bob has seen. I did look through some of that packet last night. I have a question is exactly, and it begs us to make a site visit. Exactly where is this 100 by 100 foot parcel? If you put the address in, which is
1044.
1004 Route 28, it shows it to be between the restaurant and the church property. And more to the away from the church property. So I don't even know who owns the land. Maybe the cell phone tower people own the land, or maybe they're leasing it from whoever does own it. But I think I haven't seen you, Karen, for pointing out page 55 and page 56. I want to go back and when I review the whole document, look at Sarah's letter. If Sarah is reserving judgment, I think this commission ought to reserve judgment until we get a better handle on things, and also to see how our commission fits into the overall town approach to this. You know, for instance, is this on a planning board agenda? I kind of had a real pause moment when I heard Bob read off a 120-foot tall tower right on Route 28. I would think that a lot of people, a lot of residents of the town would go, whoa, what's that all about?
And Jack, if I can just jump in, because I didn't really finish George's question about zoning, is, you know, normally what happens is the building commissioner gets an application, reviews it against the existing bylaw. And if there's anywhere in a proposal that doesn't meet the, you know, rules and requirements outlined in the bylaw, the zoning bylaw, then the project has to go to the zoning board of appeals. And that's where they have a you know, a big public hearing to determine whether or not to grant the relief from the existing zoning bylaw as needed. So I hope, George, does that close that loop for you?
Yes, and that would be an important precursor for us before we even think about wading in on this. So, I mean, if there's a public meeting, then I would think that we would have a presence there and want to give our 2 cents. So, so this is my read is this is way too premature.
I do think you guys are because you're noticed, and just like, I don't know if Bob, is the Historical Society going to weigh in on this, or have they already done so?
I lost you here for a minute. Hold on.
I mean, my thought is you guys have a, kind of an early bite at the apple, if you will, right now. So you have opportunity to provide some comment.
Yes.
What that comment is up to you, but you have this opportunity at this point in time to provide comment to Mass Historic on the project.
Right. I'm just bringing up now for the first time, after Christmas, I noticed that this letter was in my box. So I'm not sure what.
So, Grace, one of the things, to Bob's point, that this has come up before, is there anything in our archives or records to indicate what the Historical Commission did back then?
Back then in terms of?
Weighing in on the application that, I guess Bob said that there was an application prior to this and that HSOY jumped in on it. So if they did, what did the town do? What did the commission do?
The only application that I know of is the one that is the cell tower that's behind the post office, correct, Karen?
That's this one. Oh, behind the cell tower, behind the post office. Yes. Bob, do you recall what the project was that you weigh in?
I'm told it was about 6 or 7 years ago, and Christine Marzigliano was the president then. So she would have, and she fought it vehemently. So she would have more information on that specifically.
And I just don't recall. I think we'd have to look.
Yeah, I've also been working hand in hand with Sarah Korjiff about this. She's her input is obviously always appreciated, especially in this matter. From what I understand is that not only is the applicant, to a degree has to be open to our comments, but MHC more than anything else would like our comments. And when I emailed back the applicant about 2 weeks ago requesting more information, I CC'd the archaeological office on that, and they had replied back to me and said thank you, and please be sure to forward any of your comments going forward from the commission to us. So I know that they are a heavy stakeholder in what we have to say as well. And a cell tower, just to keep in mind, there's so many different layers of permitting. There's and several different historic considerations, because you have to follow different guidelines based on the federal, state, and local levels. So just to keep that in mind, this is something that is quite complex because they did a 106 section filing. They have to with the federal government when it comes to something like this. So again, our comments are they don't just stay local or regional. It does go between the 3 levels of government to some consideration and degree.
Jack, go ahead. Grace, can you unmute Jack?
No, I can request. You're still muted, Jack. You're still muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. I don't know what I pressed. I tried to unmute myself. Now I've lost the mute unmute button. So you can't hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I'm not sure how much more useful discussion we might have on this issue, given the short notice to look at the whole document. And so I think I'm looking for, I don't know whether I want to make this recommendation myself, but all right, I do want to make a recommendation for discussion right now. That we as a group, I guess this should be a motion, make a motion that we reserve judgment on this proposal until we're better prepared with the information that we need to make a decision. In other words, it'll give us time to look at the whole document. I've just grabbed my computer here and pulled up the MHC letter. I did read this last night, and I now see that I read right over the 120-foot antenna construction, and I was focused on the 100 by 100-foot fenced enclosure. I know that registered on me last night, but this response from the MHC indicates that a balloon test and some photo simulations were done, and that the MHC has looked at those. Perhaps that's in the 200-page report. A balloon test simply means this, that on the site of the tower, that the people proposing it put a balloon up to the height of, in this case, 120 feet, and then take pictures of it from different vantage points. This was done a number of years ago when there was a proposal for some wind turbines to be put on Chapin's Beach in Dennis, and what you could see from them. So that's what the MHC has available to it, and we should be able to look at that too. That would have a direct impact on our thinking about how a 120-foot tower might impact on the Bass River Historic Area. But I want to make a motion that says we reserve judgment while we collect more data, and then we take action. And I don't know how to unmute myself now, but I'll just keep quiet.
All right, would someone like to second? I'm having trouble seeing everybody, so.
Yeah, for some
Seconded.
reason I've lost visibility.
Okay. George, are you going to second that for me?
I second, yep.
All right. Okay, there I see everybody now. Okay. Bob Kelly,
Yes.
we roll calling. Okay. Kathy? Okay. Kat agreed. And Bob Heislop. Give me a wave. Yeah, on you. All right. We're going to pass that motion that we're going to preserve judgment until we have more information.
Okay. I'm back.
Oh, yep, I can see everybody now. Okay, so we're going to move on to our town properties. Are there any windmill updates? Go ahead, Grace.
I went out with Beverly. We went out to the windmill and we met with Griggs and Brown, and we just put down some more, I don't even know what it's called, but for the mouse traps, just so the pests don't get in there. When we were with the representative with Griggs and Brown, he did mention that part of the reason that we're having so many issues is because at the top of the windmill and at the bottom of the windmill, there's openings. It was never insulated. It was never closed. And then I had a discussion with Mark Grills, the building commissioner, about it, because obviously he knows construction. And he said it could be a simple fix of putting a certain type of wire, not a chicken wire, I forget exactly what he used, but it's something that you can install easily that would prevent any type of animals from getting into the windmill. So perhaps that's something we would like to look into down the road.
Grace? I read Andy Schrake's synopsis, and I know from managing buildings that his plan to put a foot of rock, so I think it's 12 inches wide and so deep, keeps the rodents from getting in. And so what they do is they burrow underneath the structure and come up from underneath, and that rock prevents them from doing that.
That's good
So-
to know.
So one of his proposals was to put that around the perimeter of the mill.
Okay, that's good to know. He did say at the top to the Griggs and Brown representative that the opening as well, because we have that beam that runs up, that they're able to run up and we're having issues. So that's good. The rock will save the base though, but then we have to consider the top of the windmill as well.
Bob, I think that if, I'm not sure what you were reading from, Bob. That may have been Andy's
Yeah,
quote on the Baxter grist mill.
oh, you're right, you're right.
So, but it is something that we're happy to, Andy,
That would
this
work.
is getting down. It's something we can ask Andy about doing over at the windmill as well.
That would work there as well, I would imagine.
Okay,
You're right. I'm sorry.
we'll check in with him.
All right, good, thank you. We have the proposal or the rehabilitation for the barn. Did everybody get that in their email this morning?
Oh, and I want to say this stuff I shared, late in the day yesterday, but we wanted to provide an update to you guys. Jeff Colby is on the call. So if you have questions or want to run through the material now, we can. Alternatively, both this item and the Baxter Gristmill item are under review by the Community Preservation Committee. They met just before Christmas and had some discussions and, obviously wanted updates. They're both works in progress. So I think we do have a pretty good update in place right now. It does continue to unfold, especially the Taylor Bray Farm barn. We have some more work to do, but wanted to get your feedback. Jeff and I are happy, like I said, to talk now and or talk at a later meeting, either next week or the week after. Jordan?
Where both these projects are under works and they're still kind of changing, perhaps since we're already almost, we're already over an hour, maybe we set these two projects to discussion for our next meeting. Anybody have a issue with that, or?
I second that.
So let's, I'll make a motion to table the discussion of the Taylor Bray Farm rehabilitation and the grist mill until our next meeting.
Seconded.
And that, all right. Bob,
Yes,
Jack,
Yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
and Bob Heislop?
Yes.
Okay. That motion is passed. We'll deal with those next time. All right. All right.
Your next
Karen, so
meeting
we'll
is
probably
the
have-
28th, is that correct?
The 28th, yes, that's correct. So maybe we can, we'll try to work those maybe in earlier in the meeting so we can have enough time to discuss both.
That would be great.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Bob.
yeah, there was some talk about, maybe-
Maybe.
I'm sorry, there was some talk about maybe having a separate meeting to talk about the seals. Can
Yes.
we talk about, can we come up with a date on that now?
Sure. All right, so we already have items on an agenda for our next regularly scheduled meeting, so we should do this one.
Right, that's the 28th, right.
Correct, yep. So let's see. Do we want to try for next Thursday, the 21st?
The 21st,
Yeah.
I've got some training, but can we do it on a Friday,
Okay,
Friday morning? The 22nd?
that works for me.
Yes.
Jack, Marge, does that work for you guys?
What time? 10?
10 works,
10 o'clock on the 22nd?
22nd.
Okay, it works for me. I'm putting it in my calendar right now.
And just a point of order with where this is a subcommittee? Is this, I assume this is a public meeting and we have to notify that?
Yes.
What's the protocol?
Yes, same as like with this. Notify and quorum, et cetera.
Seems like your subcommittee constitutes a quorum, George.
Got it.
So that's the trigger.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. So we'll put that in. Let me just double check my.
Jack,
Yep.
For the meeting on the 22nd, I'm going to throw this to our chair and our deputy chair. Could you come up with a short agenda so that we have the kind of a structured approach to this in terms of, I take this to be an organizational meeting, and obviously we'll probably lapse into some substance too, but the most important part is how do we move forward? So could one of you be willing to do that, please?
yes,
Yeah.
good point, Jack. I'll do that. Julie, if that's okay for you.
That's fine. Yep. I'll make a note.
Thanks, Jack.
Great. All right, perfect. All right. Are there any archaeology updates?
Yeah. Yes. I want to, I know we're running out of time, so it'll be very quick here. Want to update people on where we are with the matching MHC matching grant money for the townwide recon survey. And I want to do this and kind of get some sense of the meeting, maybe even a pre-authorization for us to move forward on the paperwork that we need to do to get this thing up to Mass Historical on deadline. And I'll tell you what we've been doing so far, and then invite your questions, and then I'm going to ask you to, as a group, for your comments, and like I said, maybe some pre-authorization that Karen, Grace, and myself, who are doing the work on this, we have your blessing, and we can meet the deadline, which is we're going to meet the deadline, but in terms of you all making comments or being aware of what we're doing, the final product's not going to be ready before the meeting after the next meeting. What is that? The 11th is the 11th of February. So here's what we're doing. We have our letter saying that we've been accepted for we've been pre-approved for the grant. And we now have a more detailed task before us to get all this paperwork done. So today's your best chance to ask questions if you have any, or make some comments. The letter that we got is positive, but it throws a little bit of a curveball at us in that it makes some budget adjustments. They want to give us more matching money than we asked for. And this has triggered some questions as Karen, Grace, and I have talked. The three of us had a Zoom meeting yesterday, I guess, and Grace and I talked the week before. The main tasks ahead of us for the three of us to work out, and we've already started, each one of us has already started on aspects of this, is first one is to work out some new budget numbers per the new information in the Mass Historical pre-approval letter. Second task is to prepare a narrative statement which describes how the commission is going to use the completed survey as a preservation tool. I think a lot of that work maybe already been done in our pre-application. I'll come back to that in a second. And the third task is to prepare a detailed scope of work for the recon survey. For the instructions that we have received so far, it looks kind of like you would put together in a very detailed RFP. And we have been given a template by MHC from the town of North Attleboro, which did a similar recon survey. I have a copy here. It's 8 pages long. It's very detailed. The saving grace might be that we can just plagiarize from it, if you will, to borrow language, but make it more specific to the town of Yarmouth. But the general, if the general tasks of what they're looking for apply to us, then we'll just use that over again. So Grace, Karen, and I have been talking about this. We're moving forward, and on the 20th next week, Grace and I will have a conference call with two people from Mass Historical. This is something that Mass Historical in their approval letter strongly recommend to anybody who was pre-approved for this matching grants. And I think the whole purpose of it is to coach us through putting together the kind of full application that will be best received at Mass Historical. So that's what the meeting on the 20th is about. I think the three of us can move ahead doing our things in the meantime, but on the 20th, we'll be able to kind of sort out what it is that Mass Historical wants. A particular, for instance, would be, is the North Attleboro template something that we can borrow liberally from? That's a better word, the better way to put it instead of plagiarize, I guess. But that's where we stand. And the deadline for getting this all up to Morrissey Boulevard is the 8th of February. The asterisk on that is we can't do it and send it out that morning in an email or the day before. You have to physically deliver a hard copy, period. That's just the way they do business up there, which means that our deadline is actually in advance of that. So this is your opportunity to ask questions of myself or Grace or Karen on how we're proceeding, working on these budget numbers, getting a narrative together, and preparing this scope of work. And it's not speak now, forever hold your peace, but I think what I'd like is get a sense of this meeting of, are you willing to trust the three of us to put together something that meets approval by Mass Historical?
Yeah, the February 8th is actually a Monday. So if you have to have it there before then you have to have it there before the weekend. So
yeah. I don't want this to turn, there's a famous Parkinson's law that says work is oh shoot, I've forgotten it now. It says work expands to fill the time available for its completion. I don't want to have that. Neither does Grace and neither does Karen. We want to get this done ahead of time and with time to spare to get it up to Mass Historical. I think we might have used the FedEx to deliver the last one on time. But we'd like to get it done. I don't want to say this is just paperwork because it's more than that. It's particularly the scope of work plan in its detail. I've already read it over once, and I want to go over it with more of a fine-tooth comb to see if there's any big differences between Yarmouth and Attleboro that we want to factor into the final document.
The only thing I would like to say is that this is definitely not my area of expertise in any way, so I would definitely defer any of my opinions to you guys as knowing way more about it than me. So go for it, and I fully support what you guys are doing, and an enthusiastic thumbs up from me. George,
thank you. One of the things that came up where we all go to our own areas of expertise, Karen brought up, Grace and I had been discussing this on our own, and Karen, when she joined us yesterday, brought it right to bear that we need some specific financial guidance from Ed Centio in order to make sure we've jumped through all the hoops in terms of the curveball that they threw us by increasing our matching grant from 12,500 to 15,000. It's not a question of the money not being available. It's a question of how much matching money and the paperwork that's necessary. Also, they said in the letter, the acceptance letter, we've been operating on the presumption that we could get this done for 25,000 approximately. Mass Historical thinks it's now going to cost us 30,000. I'm in the process of reaching out to the people who gave us the quotes initially so that we could get a good cost estimate to see if their 25 or whatever the specific numbers they gave us still would apply in a contract that would be led in fiscal year 22. You see what I'm getting at? It's get wheels within wheels and complications. I was really happy to have Karen say yesterday she was going to reach out to Ed to get a more detailed opinion from the town's financial guru.
All right, Bob?
Bob?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'll put a motion that Jack and Karen and Grace are the committee for this.
Seconded.
All right, for seconds. Kathy approved. I probably can't have Jack approve his own committee, so. Bob Hyslop, you approve too? Okay, he said yes, and I do too. So we'll pass that motion. And thank you all for your hard work on that, because that's,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Are there any community preservation updates that we need to discuss?
I had a few, but I will, they're not critically sensitive, given that we're gone over, so I'd like to move them to the next meeting. And
Great. Grace, you look like you wanted to say something. Are you good? No, you're good. Okay. All right. I just have one last thing. We can probably also move this to the next meeting as well. But Melanie couldn't be here today, but she was looking through our brainstorming document that we were all working on, back in 2019, and she is interested in taking over some of the educational things that we had originally discussed. I briefly emailed back and forth with her that I would like to help her with this. But since she's not here, I just want to let you know that that's something that she was interested in. And I think we should talk more about this next time when hopefully she can be here. And if anybody else has any action items from this list that they're interested in, perhaps you can write up a short little thing about what piece of it you're interested in and what kind of projects you would like to do. Just something very brief, short little outline, just so that we can see who's interested in what, and then we can go from there to kind of put together, projects that we want to do for this, next couple of years or whatever. So Grace, if we can put that on the agenda for the 28th to discuss that. And George, go ahead.
One of the things that Bob had suggested early on when we started the brainstorming sessions was to, given we've had a lot on our plates over the last year or so, is to do a interim meeting for an hour where we would get together, and that would be the only agenda item, which would be to look at the projects. And I know Beverly has an important one on the restoration of the art in Yarmouthport. So that would be my suggestion, is that we, next meeting, set a time in February where we can spend an hour on this together.
Sounds good. Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda to discuss and make a separate meeting to go over the projects. Pick a date next time.
Bob?
Kelly, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that on a different subject, the Yarmouth Visioning, we passed on Kathy Williams' request through our Constant Contact, which reaches 1,100 people. So that went out yesterday, I think, and so we're getting the word out.
Great.
Thank you for that.
All right, does anybody have anything else that they need to bring forward today? No, all good. All right, can someone make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
All right, Bob seconds, and Kathy seconds. All right, Jack,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Bob Hyslop?
Aye.
All right, we have adjourned. Everybody, thank you. We'll see you on the 22nd for our SEAL subcommittee and on our 28th for our YELA meeting.
Will you be sending out Zoom on that?
Yeah, I will be.
Okay, great, thanks.
Grace, thank you very much, Grace.
Of course.
A lot of work. Thanks much.
Good week.
You too. Bye.